Hey everybody, welcome to
Welcome.
another Tuesday live. We've got some cool stuff going on today. We're going to be talking with Steve Crawford. And Steve, why don't you say hi and introduce yourself and tell some of the folks why they are checking in. Who are you and where are you from?
Yeah, okay. My name's Steve Crawford. I live in Yuma, Arizona. That's down in the southwest corner of Arizona, on the border of California and Mexico. It's it's not a big city. It's only about 100+ thousand people, so it's not huge, not a huge place. And I am a real estate investor. I am mostly interested in doing wholesale and creative finance.
That is awesome. So
Um,
we connected a few years ago through social media. Jen and myself are doing some creative finance, and we were attached to you because you were talking about that stuff like early, like before it became like the new buzzword over like the last 6 months to a year.
right.
Um, so when did you get started in creative finance altogether?
About 3 years ago. So I worked at Yuma is real big with agriculture. So what I was doing before was I worked in agriculture. I always wanted to be a crop duster. I wanted to fly airplanes and spray fields with with poison essentially for bugs, so like I worked on the ground at a crop dusting firm, and I was working on getting my pilot's license and getting the hours and experience I needed to start working in a plane. And I ended up getting passed up for that position for another guy that they hired from out of town, and that upset me. So I started searching on the internet for what people do for money. So I didn't make a lot of money working on the ground. So I was scouring the internet. I essentially Googled how to get rich, and that's led me to most people that are wealthy are involved in one way or another. Regardless, they're involved with real estate. So I said, okay, well, how do what do you got to do to get involved in real estate, and what do you got to do to get involved in real estate with no money? And that kind of led me down the road to learning a little bit about like the Burr method and how people were using those methods to get houses. And also I in reading a book about the Burr method, I discovered if there was a thing called wholesaling, and I Googled how to get into real estate with no money, and started looking at pieces on that were on the internet at the time. It wasn't as clear of a picture of what was what. And then I finally found a podcast that was Steve Train. He has a podcast, and that podcast he had guests that would all discuss like their entire business, which was amazing. And he would also discuss his business, his wholesale business. And one of those guests was eventually, after getting through several of them and trying to figure out what to do and making attempts. And actually, I did a wholesale deal where I didn't make any money at all, which I can go into. But I actually did my first wholesale deal without making a penny. But after just trying to figure it out on YouTube University, I came across a podcast Steve Train did with a guy named Pace Morby, which he's pretty famous now, but at the time he was just a guy in Phoenix that was knocking it out of the park using creative finance. And I always struggled with like the idea of people selling their houses at big discounts, because I just couldn't put I made the mistake of putting myself in the seller's shoes, which is always a mistake. Sales 101 thing. And I could never figure that out. So, but when I heard Pace describe being able to pay full price for homes and using creative finance, I knew that's what I needed to learn to do. And I spent a lot of time trying to track him down because he didn't have a mentorship at the time. So I drove up to Phoenix to try and catch him. I missed him, but I ended up hanging out with Steve Trang because they used to jog together at 5 a.m. So I drove up there. I left Yuma at like 2 a.m. to go and try and meet these guys. And that was the day that Pace happened to not show up. So I ended up jogging with Steve Trang and discussing with him. But eventually, like Pace ended up opening up a mentorship, and I was one of the early on people that got in. That was, there was only like 30 people when I joined. So that is kind of like how I got involved with creative finance, and that's who I learned all that early stuff from was Pace Morby.
My gosh, what a freaking cool story that is. I mean, get up at 2 a.m, go drive hours and hours away to hopefully bump into two guys jogging, right? To try to put your real estate thing on the map. Like, I think of all the people who've reached out to me and nobody's tried to catch me like.
Well, you need to go jogging at 5 a.m, babe.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow, that's incredible. So, and even to this day, I'd love to go on a jog with Steve Trang.
Yeah.
Like,
well, you know what? At the time, they were putting out that anybody who wanted to show up could show up. And when I contacted Steve about it and said, all right, I'll be there tomorrow morning. And he said, he told me that nobody had ever shown up, that these guys were giving out free information. That's why I went up there to ask them what they thought I should do to start, because I didn't know. And he said nobody had ever shown up. So I was amazed by that, like not even people that live in Phoenix.
So think about this. You want the extra mile where most people don't even go the first mile.
Yeah. And I think that's like key, like that if you want to get something done, you have to put in that work. You have to get it and then it'll happen.
So you had, obviously, if it woke you up at 2 o'clock in the morning and made you drive halfway across Arizona, you probably had a burning desire to be doing this, right?
Right. Yeah. I think it was just, a lot of anger at having a dream about being a pilot, and that kind of fizzling, in my opinion. I'm not young, so I was working on something at what I considered to be, like a last ditch effort to make something of my life, and it didn't work out. So I guess I felt like some sort of I don't want to say desperation, but like inspiration, maybe a better word, to get it figured out.
Well, we all have our why.
Yeah.
We all have those things that inspire us. Some things that, like you said, could be overlooked from a job. Sometimes it's, I am sick and tired of missing my wife and my kids' stuff.
Sure. And I think that, the stronger that is, and the more crystallized that vision is of what you want, the more you'll be able to march towards it. I think that if you can crystallize that vision of what it is and really define what you want, that you can essentially everything you do throughout the day, you can take it and look at it through the lens of, is this going to take me towards this goal, or is it a distraction? And then make your decision on if you're going to do it.
Right. So I've noticed when we get to interview different people, that's why I love having this platform. As it seems like so many of you are all starting from the same thing. You have this mental destination of where you want to go to, and there's something going on in your life that's the catalyst to provoke that going forward, right? To really inspire you to get going forward and having that definite of purpose, right? I am sick and tired of what's going on, and I need change, and I'm willing to drive hours and go jogging with people in the dark to get that change, right? So you did the next thing, is you had that burning desire, and then you took action.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're going to dive into right now a little bit, because it seems like to me from folks that when we talk to a new real estate investor, there's usually a lot to get involved with. There's a lot to unpack. They sometimes feel overwhelmed. And when you feel overwhelmed and you feel confused, you don't take action because you don't even know where to start.
Right.
Right. So what are some of the advice that you would be able to share with somebody that helped you in the beginning to now you're inspired? You drove to see train, you jogged in the dark. Now they tell you, let's go do some things. What were some of the things that helped you start taking that action?
Well, I think action is the most important step. So if you're going to you're gonna make mistakes. That if you're trying to figure everything out before you get started, you're going to spend the rest of your life figuring everything out, and you're never going to get started. So I think the best thing to do is probably to get started on the mission, and then start resolving issues that arise as they arise. I just believe that's the route to go. And I also think that a super important thing to do is locate somebody that is doing what you want to do. You know, for me, it was Pace. He was already doing what I wanted to do. And that was the only person I could find who was doing it at the time. Now there's other people who do it, you know, the creative finance thing. But locate them, and then see if there's some sort of mentor program or something that, you know, some sort of opportunity to learn from them, and then actually do what they're doing. That's how like my first deal came about. Was I didn't know what escrow meant. I didn't know when I went into escrow not understanding, like, you know, is it something you can hold? What is escrow? Like, there was all these words I didn't understand. And like, I essentially I found a seller that was willing to sell their house, but they wanted a little too much for the house. So the house was probably worth maybe 110, but they wanted 120. And so I talked to the seller about a deal using seller finance. They own the house outright, and they agreed, but they didn't like the price. So they asked what, you know, okay, well, they agreed, but they didn't like the amount they were going to be getting monthly. So what they needed was $20,000 to move. And then they were willing to carry the $100,000, and they asked how much they would be getting a month. And so I just calculated up what 100,000, I divided 100,000 by, I think it was, what is it, 360. And just gave them that, you know, whatever that was like $200 a month in some change. And that's not enough for me. And then I just reduced the length of the term to 20 years. And gave them, well, how would $416 be over 20 years? And they're like, okay, that'll be enough. That'll work. And so, you know, like, and that's all stuff I learned by, you know, just from listening to Pace. I had no idea there was another way to do it. And he's all, just do that to keep your interest at zero. And so essentially I got a zero interest loan for $100,000, 20 grand down. And I, you know, just from listening to somebody, and that's my first deal out. In you know, so like it's I say just do it. You know, if you don't understand what you're doing, don't try and reinvent the wheel. Just listen to what they're telling you and do exactly that. And then you can, you know, refine it and make it your own later once you start to taste that success.
That is a cool story. And all it takes is just that one inspiration, that one person that you've just seen to do it in front of you. And the thing is, which is great about buying real estate this way, it's been going on for centuries. You know, if I wanted to buy the neighbor's farm, I'd trade him some chickens back in the day, or cows, or whatever it was. So it just,
and not just real estate,
right?
everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like before it was everything. So it was like, it was a real hard thing to wrap my head around at first. So I just did exactly what you know, what I thought this guy would do. And it worked out.
Yeah. And it's crazy. Like what you said, you brought up a great point earlier, is you'd ask yourself, like, why would anybody do this? But that's because you are putting your head, or, you know, your thoughts in other people's heads, and you don't know their situation. Right. And what could affect them. Really interesting. This was in 2016. My in-laws are actually here on the Zoom right now. Mark and Sherry Williams. And give them a wave, guys.
Hey,
this was like probably May 2016, and I was following Ron the Grand for years and things like that. And Mark, who's here with us right now, said, hey, you know, I've been watching some Ron the Grand videos about the pretty house business. And we started sending each other these YouTube videos. And that's what really sparked the creative finance thing for us, because we were buying houses, you know, the old fashioned way. And it was just really slow. And so we were looking for that solution. And Mark and I just started chatting about it a few different times. And then fast forward it is. So it's just getting around the right people who are doing what you want to see done, and then letting them kind of lay down the blueprint of how it's done, and then taking that action, right? So
Absolutely.
guys, it's a thing how you stumble upon it. It happens sometimes in the most strangest ways, of coming across something on the internet, jogging in the morning with people, who whatever it is, but it's keeping your eyes peeled for opportunities, finding out what it is that you want, defining that, and then follow people who are doing that.
Yeah, and I'm going to interject real quick because I feel like our stories are similar in that now there's a lot of noise, and some of it is wonderful and a lot of it is just a lot of noise on the internet, and there's so many people to follow. And I think what it seems like where we both had a similar situation where we just kind of like followed one person, right? In your case, well, it was Steve and then Pace, but for us, it was Ron. And I can't imagine if I'm just getting into this where I'm trying to learn this way and that way. And it's like, it's so much, guys. So, there's so many people doing this the right way, but tune most people out almost, and like just find the ones that like really you gravitate towards and really work with that person. And like Steve said, don't veer from what they're saying. Same thing from our mentor, Ron. He's the same way, like just do what I say, don't reinvent the wheel. You need, to just focus on that. So I think that's a really big takeaway, because there's a lot of great people and it's awesome to listen to the YouTube and all that, but to take that action consistently, let's go back to that a little bit too, because, you said, there's so much to learn by doing. And in the chat, somebody was asking, JV is joint venture. And you don't have to know every word to get started. I certainly didn't. And I know Joe listened, I don't know how many hours upon hours of recordings. And I'm sure you did too, Steve, like you learned as you went. So what is, take us back to another deal that you could maybe walk us through that you feel like, yeah, I learned this lesson.
Okay. I think that, I've done a couple creative deals. Most of the deals I've done are cash wholesale deals. And that's kind of how I keep myself afloat. But I've done a couple creative deals. And one of those deals, I've done a couple on mobile home parks. And one of those was a deal where, this one will speak to don't put, your head in the sellers. One of them was a guy who wanted to sell a mobile home park for $600,000, and he agreed to do a terms deal on it. And when I asked him, okay, what are the terms that you need to make this a deal? He gave me terms and I ran those numbers, and I realized that the cash on cash return was like astronomical. It would be the payment to seller was going to be like $3,500 a month. And after everything said and done, taxes and insurance and everything, altogether you would be paying $5,000, including the payment to seller. And the place as it was already bringing in $10,000 a month. So immediately I say, yeah, we'll take that deal, like on the terms you've given. And I think that I forgot where I was heading with this. Sorry about that. But I think that, I think it's important. It's an important point, that we talked a little bit about was, like, if anything, I think that if you're going to be on the front end of this, you're going to want to study sales, because I knew absolutely zero about sales. I understood zero about how, like the business mindset as well. I suggest you read a book like, what's the one everybody read? The Rich Dad, Poor Dad book would probably be a good one to read, because it'll give you some sort of idea of the difference between and where you're spending your money and where you should be spending your money to actually acquire money that you can spend on things that you want. I think that there's just been a whole lot of things that I've learned. What was your question again? I want to make sure I answer it, but I think that
just one of your big takeaways, you were sharing just that, you're going through the motions, you don't know everything, but like you're learning definitely as you go. So I just think that's super important. We did have a quick question here. You mentioned on that deal earlier, what was the exit of the 20K down $100,000 interest-free deal? Did you keep that one for your portfolio?
I do. I have it. I borrowed $30,000 from a private money lender that Pace helped me find. and I put it 20 down, and I put about $6,000 into getting the place rent ready, and then I pocketed $4,000 on the front end, and then started renting it out. So my payment to the seller was about $416 a month. My private money payment is about $250 a month, and yeah, so it rents out. The place rents out at $1,200 to $1,400. I'm sure I could raise that rent to $1,400. So it's a nice two bedroom, 2 bathroom with a 4-car garage, real big garage. Nice neighborhood. So I mean, I just got a really good deal, and pocketed
So
$4,000 on the front end with it.
I was just gonna say that you got paid $4,000 to buy
Take a
this
house.
property with no money down.
Yeah.
And cash flow, also with a 0% mortgage.
Yes. So
Not
I was
bad
like
for your first deal.
Yeah, it's an amazing deal. Yeah, Pace drove down from Phoenix and made a video about it. You can, it's on his YouTube channel. It's a couple years ago. It's one of the first, one of the early on videos he had done.
That's so
That
cool.
is cool.
Yeah, and then as far as is in this mobile home park went too, so it was $600K. The seller wanted 120 down. I talked him down to 100 down, 500 carried over 20 years at 6%. So payment to seller approximately 3,500 after insurance and all that. We're now raising that up. We got a really good guy that's managing the place, raising up. It should be making around 12K. I didn't have $100,000, and I didn't have access to people that could bring $100,000 to the table. So I partnered up with Pace on that as well. I took $30,000 and kept some equity on that as well. So I got paid and kept a portion of that deals. So I try and make that the point on deals like that, is to get something on the front end, something in equity as well. And then, you also get paid in cash flow and depreciation. So it's the 4 ways to try and get paid on a creative deal.
Absolutely. There's more than one way to get paid on these deals.
Yeah, and if you can get all 4 of those, then I think that's awesome.
Right. Well, and that's the key too. This is why what you did was very smart. You had a deal. It was a great deal. And if you don't have the capital, you partner with somebody who did to help you out. So you could still get that deal down the road and everybody make out.
Yeah, I think that and it's always good to partner up with people who have more experience and more money than you. I think that it puts you in a good position to, everywhere I go, I can talk to people, about the fact that I'm partners with Pace Morby on a couple properties. And, when if he introduces me to somebody, he always introduces me as somebody he's partnered up with. So I think that, helps out. If you're looking for private money and things like that, I say, don't be afraid to give up a portion of something that's good. Don't, you can let something go and then gain in the long run as well. A lot of people ask me why I would ever sell a deal that was so good, where, it was, I don't remember what the cash on cash was, but it was astronomical. It was above 40%. It might even have been above 50%. I don't remember, but I mean, it was a crazy good deal. And why would you ever give up, a portion of that or any of it at all? Well, for me at the time, I didn't know necessarily how to find $100,000. Maybe I could have figured it out. I don't know. Maybe, but I think that the relationship that I built with somebody that's as powerful and driven as Pace has been totally worth it for me.
Well,
Yeah,
we're
plus the lesson you
huge.
learned.
Yeah, not only the lesson, but just being able to abundance mindset, right? Like you can't take down every deal yourself, and sometimes you can't do it all alone. So use the community, work with people that know what they're doing, that maybe have that networking ability. So I think that that's an excellent story for all of us, as I see a lot of people who are so stubborn, they just try, I'm going to figure it out all alone. And so then just sail off on their sailboat and you don't hear from them again. But if you are willing to
Sure.
think, hey, like, help me out, throw me a lifeboat. I'm here to learn. I've got this deal. Let's partner up on it. And that's exactly what JVing is. You can partner with people that know what they're doing, have the experience, maybe have the capital, and you learn along the way, right? And make money.
Yeah, and I could think that, I've made the mistake of not wholesaling a deal, thinking that I could take it down. I was in a group of people that found a 100-unit apartment complex deal that we thought was good, and it might have been good, but we ended up putting down a minimal EMD that was non-refundable, and going into it, and then kind of discovered along the way that it wasn't going to work out for us with our skill level. And later on, talking to Pace, we should have wholesaled it to him probably, and he might have been able to do something with it, like just that skill level. I think that and he had asked me early on, well, do you want to wholesale it? And I told him no, I just needed advice. And maybe at that time, it was a time where I didn't have the skill set, and it would have been a good time to take a wholesale fee and get a front row seat on a big deal getting done. But that was a miss, and it didn't. It cost me, about $3 or $4 grand, but not not the end of the world, I guess. But it still stings to think you could have made money and then had a front row seat to somebody else's victory lap.
You know what? You learn.
Yeah.
You learn, right? And every experience, good or bad, you take a little lesson with you along the way, and that's what builds your education.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
So you count your wins, but you also have to count your, can't say it was a loss because you still learn things along the way, right? You came up with some lessons there. So if those lessons cost you $3,000, that's what it cost.
Yeah, no, and absolutely. It was there's a lot of lessons on that particular one. Was that it took a lot of time and a lot of learning about things that were I was in over my head. And so I was spending a lot of time learning about things that I needed to know to try and get through a deal of that size. And while in the middle of it, which is not necessarily the best way to go, I don't think. But I lost focus on what my goals were, and that what we were talking about earlier, that crystallization of your vision of where you want to go. And I, ended up veering way off course for a good amount of time. And, so now I'm like in the process of trying to write the course there and get back to what I really should be focused on at the point where I'm at right now.
Right. And thanks for bringing that in, because I want to bring that up is so where you're at right now.
Uh-huh. Oh, where am I right? Yeah. Okay. Well, I mostly do wholesale deals, cash deals. Is this the run-of-the-mill deal where you find a seller willing to sell at a discount? You put the property under contract, and you find somebody willing to pay, hopefully $10,000+ more than that, so that they can do some sort of flip on it, or whatever it is they want to do. They can renovate and burr strategy, that refinance it, or whatever it is they want to do. So I do a lot of that, and that is mostly what I'm up to. And I mostly do it here in Yuma. So I've been somewhat reluctant to spread my wings and try other places. I've done a couple deals in Texas, 2 deals in Texas, and that's about it. Other than that, every other deal's been here in Yuma. So that's limited me some. And I think that that's where I'm looking to what I'm looking to do next is find another place to do more deals.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's kind of helped us is by doing it virtually too.
Yeah. So that's what I'm exploring, like, how do you pick your spot, and what are your goals and what do you want to do, I think is the main thing.
Yeah, and just putting it out there too, are you posting on social media? Because obviously we're huge fans of it, and just like letting people know like you're the go-to guy in the area, and just spreading that word of, if you got something, I'm here, we can partner, or I can help buy your house. That could always be
Sure.
helpful. But yeah, it took us a little while, but once we spread our wings, it was hard to look back. We were like,
Yeah.
let's go. But I want to dive into, obviously we homeschool our two kids and we're huge on family time. So how can you kind of share the difference between now that you're able to work from home for yourself, what that's changed your family life, the dynamic there, and just kind of like let us in a little bit on the day to day, what things you get to do now that you couldn't before.
Well, yeah. Before like I said, I worked in agriculture. So during the season, we have a very long season here. Our season's in the winter because our winters are so mild here. So we have an extremely long season. So we grow a lot of lettuce. Like all the lettuce everybody eats in the winter is from,
Really?
lettuce capital of the world. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Wow.
we do a lot. We'd work long days. We'd work anywhere 6 days a week. We'd work 12 to 16 hours, and then on Sundays, sometimes 8 to 10 hours. So it was a lot of work and a lot of time away from the family. And then once I used the real estate knowledge that I gained to pull away from that and walk away, there's just so much time spent with my family, and time, we work at night here too. All the work we did was at night because we were spraying fields, so we had to make sure there weren't the workers in the fields out there. So we would have to work at night. So now it's a lot of time spent during the day with my family, which is nice. If my wife needs something, I'm here. It's been a big boon to my family, is that extra time. And I make a lot more money than I did ever working on the ground over there. So financially it's been better. I just think that and I think that that's one of those things that people don't really realize, that how much more that might be the most valuable thing, is like how much time you can spend with the people you want to spend that time. It's you can make a lot of money, but it's what it's about the time freedom. And I think that as far as like creative finance goes, if you understand it and you can use it to acquire properties and put yourself in a position to be collecting cash flow, you could potentially have absolute freedom of time if you can reach that goal, figure out what that goal is and aim for it. And you can use creative finance to achieve it.
That is awesome. So wait a minute. You're making more money. The kids get to see dad.
Right.
Your wife gets to see you more, and you're not working these crazy overnight hours and all these late nights and things like that. And if you think starting to go all the way back to the very beginning, as you were sick and tired of what was going on, you took some action. You reached out to somebody who's doing what you wanted to do. And now look at, here it is, fast forward from taking this action. And like you've said, you've had some good hits along the way. You've had some misses along the way.
Yeah.
But you continue to take action. You continue to move on. And it's not like, you're buying multi-big buildings. You're just be able to just ride smoothly and continue to live your life. And like you said, make more money than ever. So that's awesome because of real estate and learning from people.
Yeah. And I think that, it's, yeah, I just think that it's definitely been an amazing thing for me.
Is it a get rich overnight scheme?
I got really lucky, and for me, within the first month of trying to figure out what was going on, I had locked up my first deal. But that's what it was. It was luck, because then there was a dry spell after that. And no, it's not. Long answer short. You're probably not going to get rich quick, but it's. I think you could, if you're steady and with it, you can get rich in a much quicker way than you could ever working for somebody else. I just really don't see unless you're some sort of high powered lawyer or, a doctor or something, I don't really know how you, could, work a regular blue collar job and make a high quality, exit from working, retirement. How great can your retirement be? Probably not massive. I think that this is a great route for people to go down. I think it takes been a steep learning curve for me. I didn't know a thing, like I mentioned earlier. I didn't know what escrow meant. I didn't know what I didn't know what anything was. I didn't understand a subject to. It was almost impossible for me to comprehend that you could separate a mortgage from a house. I didn't understand that at all. I didn't understand that you could take that deal if you didn't have any money and you didn't even want the house. You could just structure a deal and take that and sell it. It's like learning all these things is you can't learn it overnight. But I think once you do learn those things, you have like a skill set that you could put into action. Even if you lost everything, say there was some sort of catastrophe, these are skill sets that you could use to regain it in a pretty quick way, I'm pretty sure. Like, I feel like, somebody with like your experience could probably, like, if we took everything from you, how long do you think it would take for you to go out from scratch by yourself, just go find a deal? I think it would be pretty quick. I bet you could get it done in a couple weeks,
Without a doubt.
maybe faster, maybe days,
Without a doubt. You could, same thing from you. If you learned this business, we could pick you up and I could put you anywhere in a place across the map and say, okay, you're going to start doing business in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And next thing you know, Steve will start making deals in Tulsa, Oklahoma, right? Just because
Yeah.
you learned the process. And now you just started this in 2020. So for anybody who's listening to this later on, this is June right now during the recording here. It's June 2023. So this is 3 years later. And you've gone from, hey, I don't really know much about it, to where now, like, I left my job. I'm doing this full time. I'm making more money than I ever have before. And this is what I do, right? So it's not like it took you a decade or years and years and years, or wait till your retirement age to learn this. You've learned it fairly quickly. I mean, you can't graduate college hardly in 3 years. So, I mean,
Right. And
that's
and I
a good
think
point.
That's pretty
that, like,
impressive.
yeah, I think that that's an important point and I made money along the way, and I've
Mhm.
I've gained assets along the way as well. So you think about somebody who goes to college, well, now they're out fresh. They get a job, and maybe it's a great job. Maybe it's a job where you make a lot of money, but I you're still paying back your student loans, it's a job. I don't have a job, if I wake up and I don't want to go to work, then I just don't go, I do whatever I want, it's on me. I think there's something to be said for that. I think that that's a, you, I guess it's not like you can just lay in bed and not do anything, because otherwise you can't, afford the life you've got unless you've already reached that goal, whatever it is. Say you need 20,000 a month to live the lifestyle you want to live. We'll set that goal and you just create a finance to reach that goal with passive income, the cash flow. If you haven't reached that goal, I guess you can't sit around too much. But I mean, but I work when I want to work. If I want to, if I want to stay in bed till 9 a.m. and then get up and start working till 9 o'clock at night, then I can. Or if I want to get up at 5 a.m. and work till 5 o'clock at night, I can. I guess it just is. It's up to me. You can kind of design things the way you want them designed. And I don't think that, there's not many college degrees that are going to give you a job that give you that. I don't think.
No, there's no way you can just go walk into Life by Design. And that was one of the biggest perks I always saw was however you want to spend your day is how you get to spend your day. If you want to grow a team and you want to have employees, go ahead. If you want it to be yourself and just do it at your own pace, you can do that too, right? Like, there's no one way fits all. And that's the beautiful thing about it.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, like 100%. I mean, I think that, yeah, so we kind of talked before we come on here a little earlier about, like I'm not quite exactly where I want to be. I haven't reached my goals yet. And maybe, I know some people have by the time they've been in it for 3 years, and, maybe they went at it harder than I did and they did things differently than I did. Okay. I know, like, well, I personally know it didn't take Pace very long to achieve his goals. He's only been at doing what we're doing for 4 or 5 years. It's not much longer than I've been doing it, but he's achieved like this massive amount of success, and it's way different than what happened for me and how much I've achieved. But I also have spent a lot of time, like we talked earlier, a lot of time with my family, and done a lot of things that I think are riches that can't really be described monetarily. So I've gained other things, and I'm still trying to figure out that balance. I still want to achieve those goals for my family, like the cash flow goal that I have set, so that I can feel like they're at that point I have the absolute freedom.
Well, if you think about it, success is subjective.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Everybody's level of success is different.
Agreed.
And if your level of success was, hey, they overlooked me from the job that I wanted, and now I'm a little upset, a little sad, a little angry, there's a lot of mixed emotions, and they're not paying you what you feel like you're worth, and you're able to leave that and go do
Mhm.
something where now you're working for yourself, that's a success.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're the boss, right? And you don't have the boss telling you are in control of your life anymore. That's a huge success.
Right.
And now if you're working to become more successful by achieving further goals on the road, you're on your journey. So,
Yeah.
for me, success was getting to walk away from my job and spending more time with my wife and kids than ever, and traveling. And here I'm getting to do that. Am I at the financial goals that I want? Not yet, but I'm
Right.
on my way. And every day I get a little closer, just one step at a time. But I'm able to say, hey, I want to work from home today, or I'm going to go into the office, or I'm going to go look at a property. I get to do what I want, where I was stuck
Yeah.
in an office, what I called a million times over the glass fishbowl, where I was in a glass office. I was making money, but I watched everybody around me go do all the things while I was stuck in this office.
Right.
So my success was getting out of the fishbowl.
Yeah, and I think that's awesome. And I think that's an important thing too, is that you said, at least I think it's important for me, is that you got to define your own success, and that's part of that crystallized vision. So I think that it's super important. It's that what it is for you. Because I don't want to necessarily be a billionaire, or I don't have like that desire. I know some people do, and they're like, yeah, I want to be a billionaire, and I want to private jets everywhere, and I want this, I want that. And that's not necessarily what it is for me. And I think that's it's what do you want. And once you know that, I think then you can achieve it. If you're not sure, or you based it on somebody else's desires, then you're probably not going to get to your goal, because it's not your goal.
Well, and that's the
But
kind of the point, right? I feel like some people, if you can make another $3,000-$5,000 a month in passive income, that's life changing for a lot of folks, right? If you can make
yeah,
$10,000 a month in passive income, that's life changing, and that's a huge success. So is it zillions of dollars? Doesn't have to be.
no, I mean, it's not even that hard necessarily to get to that. I mean,
Mhm.
you think about it, you could work your job. If you have a job, you could part-time do this, take your time learning it. And then once you feel like, you've, done a couple deals, and you understand what you're doing, and you've got a mentor like you to help you out, anywhere you get stuck, you could probably start making moves to like finding out how to get 2 or 3 grand extra in your pocket a month pretty quick. And I mean, here's something to think about too, is like I used to, like, the whole time I was trying to become a pilot, I thought, these guys made a lot of money, and I don't want to downsize like this because I still think it's a lot of money, but they made like between 150 and 190,000 bucks a year, depending on the year. And to me, I was like, whoa, that's just a massive amount of money. These guys make so much money flying, these pilots, they make so much money. Now I talk to people who make that in a month. Some of the people I know make that in a month. Like and I know people who make a lot more than that in a month. And that's crazy, like that amount of money, and like my mindset has changed so drastically from how it was just a couple of years ago when I worked, basically a blue collar job, essentially a minimum wage job, just looking up to these guys making, a couple $100,000. I think that, the whole point of that is back to the original thing we were talking about is it's just mindset. You can, if you can wrap your head around what we're talking about and learn about the creative finance, you can use it to propel yourself forward to whatever you want. You could acquire what you need to afford you what you want, whatever those goals are. I personally know somebody. I've been to parties at his house that's propelled it to over $100 million, and you can do it. You can start from almost nothing and just armed with knowledge, and you can make that happen. It's possible to make anything happen. So I think that's super important, and maybe your whole outlook will change along the way. Maybe your vision will change, and what you want will change along the way based on what it is at the time. Because maybe $3,000 sounds like a lot right now, and you're like, that's all I would ever need if I could just get that $3,000. Maybe you'll get that $3,000 and you'll decide, you know what, $10,000 would be super awesome.
Mhm.
Driving a G-Wagon would be great instead of a G. I don't know.
You got it
But
right
I
on the
think
head
that-
there.
Yeah, I think that it's the mindset's the mindset's the most important thing. And one of the most eye-opening experiences for me of all time was when I was listening to another person talk about people that they were using to learn about creative finance, and your names were brought up, and that's how I discovered who you guys were. And I just started, researching what you guys were about by looking on your social media, and I found it was a longer post on Instagram. It was like maybe one of those videos where it's like 20 or 30 minutes long, where you talked about the book. It's the book that I think that is the most important book.
I know
And
the book.
that's
Wait, I'm looking for it. It's not, I think both my copies
yeah,
are in my room.
I usually have it in my drawer right here, but I moved all my books to my closet back there. But I think that it's, Napoleon Hill's book. And I just, I honestly, I thought that those books were cheesy at the time. And I wasn't going to be, even after this was after I'd already had tasted some success, and I still hadn't come to grips or changed really how I thought at all. And I just think that was like one of the most eye-opening experiences, was reading that book, not for the first time, but for the second time, like you described in that video.
Think and Grow Rich is the book that we're talking about.
Right.
Napoleon
Sorry.
Hill.
Yeah, no, the book is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And I think that that's definitely sent me on a mission of changing the way I think. And I think that that's the most important thing, is to, armed with knowledge and the mindset to execute on that knowledge, you could drop down to nothing. I could guarantee you, I could, Joe, I could take your money right now, and you could be back probably where you're at way quicker than you got here this time, maybe in a year or two, maybe less.
For sure, because if you took it all, it'd be even more ambitious to get it all back. And
The desire.
with knowing
Yeah,
the blueprint and doing it repeatedly, you're right. Once you get the recipe, and this is why when we're working with newer clients, we walk them through the process of how to do one deal and
Yeah.
not overly complicate it. And then after you've done that one time, you realize I could do that more times, right? So,
Sure.
and it's just that, and then repeating that process over and over again, you learn a lot along the way. So, what a great story. I mean, it's just so interesting how fast everything can change with real estate. And it could be the difference of one deal. There's many people I know who made 6 figures on just one deal. And if you can make 6 figures or more, or 7 figures on one deal, what does that do for some of our lives?
Yeah.
Right.
I can imagine. Yeah.
That's life changing money. So you would be surprised how many people that where we drive down the street every day who need help.
Mhm.
So we're gonna follow one last question, because I know you've got stuff going on. For the future of creative finance, have you seen this starting to pick up lately, or is it not as popular? What do you think is the future of creative finance?
Well, I think that now that we were kind of talked about a little bit earlier, where it's more prevalent on YouTube and people are becoming more familiar with it. I think that agents are becoming more familiar with it. And I think that's only going to increase as everything gets harder to buy traditionally. And, things like buying things subject to, and then turning around and selling them on a wrap, or however you do it. If you buy them on a wrap and then sell them on a wrap, all that stuff's going to become stuff that agents are going to have to know about if they want to sell houses. Because if you can buy a house that was bought at 2.5%, 3%, and then turn around and sell it for 6%, you're beating the banks right now. But as we know, that you could sell it for more than that. You could sell it for more than the banks are doing. So I think that I don't know why agents aren't more interested in learning about these processes, because I feel like if you're an agent, you could kill it. So I think the future is with agents learning about this. And
It's just like,
I think if you really want to make a splash using creative finance, I think a quality thing to do would be to make relationships with agents that are open to learning about this process, teaching them about it, and then doing deals with them, having them, making it lucrative for them to bring you deals that are maybe low equity.
Yep.
we're closing on a handful right now, just the same situation. So yeah, it's your connection, your tribe, right? Who you have in your tribe is who you guys are going to grow together. So making those connections with real estate agents who you could help them, they could help you. Bigger picture, you could help the seller who's sometimes in a jam, and everybody make out great. And then the flip side of helping either a renter or a rent to own, or selling the house, or whatever you're going to do with that property later on, you're going to help a buyer or help, provide a house for somebody. So that's awesome. And that's why we love real estate. If real estate's done right, everybody should win.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. That's awesome that you say it like that, because you could save somebody from foreclosure. Well, I've saved somebody from foreclosure that the day before the auction, I put $7,500 into the pocket of the agent that brought it to me. And I made, about the same. I made about $7,000 on that deal. I didn't knock it out of the ballpark when I wholesaled it off. I had to split it with other people, and it was what it was. But I walked away with some money. The agent walked away with some money. The seller doesn't have a foreclosure issue, and that's a win-win-win. That's an awesome thing.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Steve. We're so appreciative of you taking your time from your family and your work day here. If people want to find you, can you just share maybe where they could scope you out?
Yeah, I am on Instagram. I also have a Facebook too, but I'm not as active on Facebook. I know I should be, but it's super hard for me. I just
No
have
worries.
a hard time with social media. That's something I'm working on. But if you ever want to talk to me about something or anything like that, I answer Instagram DMs. And my Instagram handle is Stephen Crawford REI. So just if that's the best place to talk to me, and or if you need something immediately, go ahead and call me. My phone number is 928-246-3316. I'll put in the chat down here.
You better
Awesome.
watch out.
Thank you
This is
so
gonna be on our YouTube channel. So people be
Oh,
calling
yeah?
you like 2 years later, like, "Hey, Steve, it's 2025. I'm listening to your podcast with Dylan and Jenn." So be careful.
I'll take it.
And there's a reason. There's a reason why we've been huge fans of yours. We've been following you for a long time. So I'm glad we got to connect again. We've done this in the past, but you're a great inspiration to folks who are, obviously in a spot and they want to make that lunge, or they want to just see what it's like to see somebody else on their journey. So it's really amazing that you came and shared a amazing, awesome story and such an inspiration for so many folks. So guys, if you're not already following Steve, you need to be. And he's an awesome human being. He's helping people. And obviously you can learn some stuff along the way. He's a great guy. So just got to follow. I can see that already. I'm sure there's going to be many more.
I'll look for you,
Awesome.
John. Thanks.
Well, thank you everybody for being here. Coming in next week, we'll be here live Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern. All recordings go up onto Creative Finance Playbook onto YouTube. We are so appreciative for you. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.
And we have a great one next week, guys. So you're not going to want to miss out. So I can't wait to share it.
Awesome. Take care, everybody.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you.